My name is Erica Kraft. I'm the Indigenous Project and Apprenticeship Coordinator with JEDI, Joint Economic Development Initiative here in New Brunswick. I'd like to acknowledge that we're on the land in which I stand is traditionally known as the Wolastoqey peoples. The territory is covered by the treaties of peace and friendship, which Wolastoqey Maliseet people first saw in the British Crown in 1725. The treaties did not deal with surrender of lands and resources, but in fact recognized Wolastoqey title and established the rules for which was to be an ongoing relationship between nations.
So today we're going to go over a quick introduction. Erica's going to talk about who she is, the work she's been doing, her organization, and then we'll go over the similar situation with myself. We'll review the background in New Brunswick, what the New Brunswick labor market looks like, the overview of Indigenous apprenticeship up to this point, and inclusion in the New Brunswick trade labor market, especially the work Erica's been doing over the last 10 years. We'll talk about the challenges and the motorcycles in my neighborhood for employment projects in New Brunswick. We'll then talk about how we really want to focus on changing the narrative, and by doing so, we're introducing a new skill to work model, the STEP, which we'll talk more about, and then we'll go to some questions if you guys have any. Take it away, Erica.
I just wanted to show you a little bit of New Brunswick and where we are. The upper part of the province is the Mi'kmaq territories. I'm part of the Maliseet communities, which is down below. I'm from Tobic First Nation, which is one of the biggest Maliseet communities in New Brunswick. Wolastoqey means people of the beautiful or bountiful river, and we are the largest of the 6 Wolastoqey First Nations here in New Brunswick. In my community, there's probably around 2,500 people, and 2/3 of our members are on the community. JEDI, what's JEDI? Joint Economic Development Initiative. We're an Indigenous organization dedicated to supporting Indigenous participation in the New Brunswick economy. Our mission is to foster economic and workforce development for the peoples in the community. Some of the things that we do economic development, workforce development, cultural awareness. We provide training and services within trades, IT, entrepreneurship, workplace essential skills, business development for Indigenous New Brunswickers. A little bit about the history of JEDI, and we're an Indigenous organization. We began in 1995 as a tripartite partnership between Indigenous communities in New Brunswick and the Government of Canada and the Government of New Brunswick. In 2009, we were incorporated as an independent non-for-profit organization. We're governed by a board of directors represented here in New Brunswick by the Indigenous communities and the province's business communities. My job is to offer guidance through apprenticeship process, share the advantages of being an apprentice, mentorship connections, linking new apprentices, sharing services offered by the apprenticeship occupation certification. I share information. I identify trades and apprenticeship projects within the communities. We enhance the data collection information of Indigenous apprentices, and we explore labor market trends, and we identify employment opportunities to share. I also work on the Indigenous Youth Engagement Trades Initiative. We have 4 overall objectives for this project, which is to develop a promotional campaign that includes information sharing, materials, videos, explore trades orientation opportunities for communities, support Indigenous pre-apprentices and apprentices in Skills Canada provincial, national, and international competitions, and encourage Indigenous participation within the New Brunswick Teen Apprenticeship Program. I just want to highlight the logo here. The little girl that's holding the picture developed the logo for the Indigenous Youth Engagement Trades Initiative. She was 8 years old. She's a member of St. Mary's First Nation. There's a 4-step process for inclusion in New Brunswick, and the first step is to find an authentic partnership with an engaged employer. And then together we pre-screen the candidates. Then once they're in, we do a training where we follow them through pre, during, and post training. We stick with them until they're in their employment for probably up to a year, or if not longer, depending on how much they need us. So we do workplace visits, we develop a trust and relationship, and usually we support a short-term work practicum for 6 to 12 weeks, and then we support them along that journey.
Oh, who am I? Well, I was born in Newfoundland. I'm the baby of 4 children, raised in a loving family, told I could be anything, which I never took for granted and was always thankful for. My husband, Tommy, is a serving veteran. He's also dedicated to Indigenous capacity building through the D&D program. We've got 2 beautiful dogs, no children together. I have a Master of Science in Agriculture. I spent many years working for a large engineering firm in environmental permitting, where I did a lot of work with Indigenous capacity building in engineering and science. So once I realized Indigenous capacity building was my passion, I really packed in that corporate management hat for not-for-profit so I could have the opportunity to work with people like Erica in the not-for-profit world. My organization is called MAP Strategic Workforce Services, or MAP for short. It's an industry-led not-for-profit dedicated to creating inclusive and learning cultures in New Brunswick workplaces through mentorship, curriculums, change management strategies, and best human resource practices. MAP delivers 2 programs and a new pilot. We have the New Brunswick Mentor Apprenticeship Program. You see the first logo, or MB MAP. And we also have New Boots, Progressing Women in Trades. And now the new pilot, for which I am the project coordinator, First in Trades. So similar to the New Boots Network, which is a network set up to support Indigenous women, women generally, we are set up to support Indigenous men and women. Oh, we're having an issue. Just a second. Let me go back and figure out where my presentation went.
And in the time being, for folks, as a reminder, if you have any questions, please write them down in the chat and we will get to them at the end of the session. Thank you.
Let me go back to the slide I was on. Let's talk a little bit about First in Trades. Here we go. So what is First in Trades? It's a 5-year pilot project with funding from the federal government, the Employment's ESDC, and the UTIP, Union Training and Innovation Program. We're partnered with the New Brunswick Building Trades Unions and JEDI to really provide meaningful training and employment experiences to Indigenous people and increase not just the participation of Indigenous apprentices among those unions of the MBBTU, but to really talk about completion rates and supporting Indigenous peoples all the way through to employment, as Erica has mentioned.
Sorry, Karen.
Yes?
We're seeing the website. Are we supposed to see the website, or are we seeing you're supposed to see the slides?
You're supposed to be seeing the slides.
No, we're seeing the New Boots Women in Trades website.
Okay, let's try stop sharing and let's try again. How do I do that, Erica? Okay, share screen. Is that working?
Perfect, perfect. Thank you.
Okay, sorry about that, guys. Technical glitches. So the goal is to provide meaningful training and employment. The aim is to recruit 18 to 20 Indigenous apprentices into the unions, intended to increase participation by both female and male Indigenous apprentices, and to increase program progression and completion rates. FIT is really endeavors to establish and refine workplace strategies and cultural requirements within the New Brunswick construction sector that will help sustain to increase Indigenous participation. So let's talk a little bit about the labor market. Like everywhere else in Canada, the evidence is clear. A perfect demographic storm is occurring all across New Brunswick in all sectors, particularly in the unionized red seal trades, fueled by reverse natural population growth, baby boomer retirements, a decline in union membership, change resistance in the union themselves, and a significant diversity imbalance. The impact will be substantial moving forward. That's why I think we can all agree to what BuildForce is saying here. We need to have an ongoing commitment to training and apprenticeship development because it's necessary to ensure enough qualified tradespeople to sustain the skilled labor force over the long term and into the future. According to BuildForce, excuse me, Canada will see 250,000 people, experienced tradespeople, retiring over the next 10 years. In New Brunswick, over that same period, it's about 7,400, a substantial amount of job openings. Since Canada's construction and industry maintenance sector relies on the skilled workforce, which typically takes 5 to 7 years through apprenticeship, and the national completion rates are only 40 to 50%, I think we can all put that together and really agree that there needs to be more emphasis on increased recruitment, progression, and completion in apprenticeships. And the underrepresented peoples, especially in New Brunswick, Indigenous, are the solution to some of that workforce shortage. It seems PowerPoint is contacting the server for information and is about to switch my slide to the next slide, I think. Oh dear. Oh, why does it keep doing that? Sorry guys. Technical difficulties all around. Can you see that?
Yeah.
Can you see the slides?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great.
But can you go on full on a yeah, there we go. Perfect.
I do not know why it keeps going back to, there isn't a link in there, I didn't think, but maybe there is. Oh dear. Try one more time. Okay. Enter. Okay. In 2018, Indigenous peoples employed in New Brunswick only represented 2.7% of the province's construction labor force. The Indigenous population is young and fast growing in Canada. We heard the national chief talking about it today on the news. Over the next decade, about 400,000 young Indigenous people are expected to join the working age population. For that same period, the Indigenous labor force aged 25 to 64 will grow 4 times faster than the non-Indigenous population of that same age group. In New Brunswick, 4 in 10 Indigenous people are under the age of 25, compared to 25% of the non-Indigenous population. So, given the vast number of Indigenous youth transitioning into the labor force, the retirement transition represents a great and significant opportunity to diversify and make our workplaces more inclusive of Indigenous peoples. Especially since we all know increased diversity, increased union density brings a higher standard of living for all members of the workforce, including unions. Indigenous workforce inclusion in the unionized Red Seals specifically also complements development of natural resources in the province and hopefully less unemployment in the future. So, Erica?
The labor market overview, the action plan for employers is to repair the disconnect that often exists in Canada between contractor employees and the country's Indigenous people. Given the forecast shortages of the trades workers over the next 10 years, as Karen has said, the overall growth in the sectors like housing construction. In August of 2018, there's probably 6% of the Indigenous population that are engaged in apprenticeship. However, the Indigenous apprentices still struggle to find significant hours to work and must relocate from their communities for technical training, and which presents barriers to certification.
So we have, I'm not sure if you're all familiar with Truth and Reconciliation and the calls to action. I recommend you go to the trusty Google machine afterwards and type in calls to action, and you will find that there are a series of actions to get us moving towards reconciliation with our nation's Indigenous peoples. Really, the call to action for industry is what sparked the New Brunswick Building Trades Union to really apply for this funding to find innovative ways to make a difference moving forward, like the partnership between ourselves and JEDI.
So the apprenticeship and inclusion labor market in 2016 and 17, as you see, we had 57 apprentices. In 2017 and 18, we had 56. In 2018 and 2019, we had 37. So, and then 5 completed in 2016, and in 2018, 6 did. So, and then.
So that's, this says a lot, doesn't it, Erica?
Yeah.
I mean, we have people coming into apprenticeship, but they aren't sticking with apprenticeship. So, you know, why is that? And we're going to get to the challenges shortly. In New Brunswick, we have invested a great deal in skilled trades training and exploration programs for Indigenous people over the years, especially with the work Erica's been doing over the last 7 years. We have, and in fact, we actually have quite a few Indigenous people who are certified and ready to go to work, but we're struggling to find them work. When we began the FIT project, everyone around us wanted to talk about the challenges faced by Indigenous people. We heard things like, yeah, we put a bunch of Indigenous people through a training program, but they didn't want to work outside their community. They didn't have access to vehicles. Well, you know, we'll talk about the challenges shortly, but Eric and I got together and said, you know what, we understand the challenges. Let's start talking about moving forward and addressing those challenges. So what do those challenges look like? Erica, do you want, or shall I? Go ahead. So there are many challenges in New Brunswick, and if you look at this list, it's very similar to the list you will find for Indigenous barriers to apprenticeship from across the country. I've bolded 3 of the top that come up consistently. Internet access, access to a cell phone, consistently access to a cell phone, no driver's license or no access to transportation, and like Erica mentioned, a real interest in staying close to home because it's important. The family connection in Indigenous communities is so important. So, based on data collected by the New Brunswick Mines and Energy and Trades Project, 76 of Indigenous clients, 76% of Indigenous clients, that's a total of 561, were actually willing to relocate for work. 64% of all respondents had a driver's license and access to a vehicle. So we have, everyone wants to stop and talk about these challenges, even in meetings we go to here in New Brunswick, eh, Erica? It's like, let's all talk about the challenges. Well, we have some stats here that says we have a whole lot of people who want to go to work. So let's stop navel gazing and actually put people to work. So besides the challenges to Indigenous people, there's actually challenges in New Brunswick that may not be faced in a place like Ontario, where there is a lot of infrastructure development and work. New Brunswick is an incredibly challenging place to get an employment project for underrepresented people off the ground. If we don't really, if Eric and I were willing to be more innovative in our approaches, you know, we probably wouldn't be successful. Large projects that were planned for New Brunswick over the next few years have miraculously, the government has just forgotten that they were going to do those projects. The provincial and federal governments have been awarding infrastructure projects to outside contractors. So our contractors in New Brunswick, in some cases, are not getting some of the big projects, infrastructure projects. It's also believed that, you know, the US is going into a recession. We got tariffs, and then that's all true. And then COVID-19 came along. So that, on top of the fact that you have unions with collective agreements and work dispatch protocols, members out of work, it's really difficult to justify putting a new face ahead of all those members who are currently out of work. So those challenges are very unique to probably Atlantic Canada with a very limited amount of project work. Which gets us to what Eric and I are saying all along. Let's stop talking only about the challenges. Yes, we have challenges. We have marginalized groups facing more barriers than the non-marginalized. And we have Indigenous people that need supported through challenges and barriers. However, we want to change the narrative and the dialogue. Let's stop talking about the things that stop us and start putting in action to get us moving. Now, we are not suggesting we stop supporting and mentoring. We will continue to do that while we pull out all the stops to assist breaking down the barriers to get underrepresented people to work. We have every intention of putting our Indigenous brothers and sisters to work by finding those really true collaborative partnerships that Erica just spoke about. We're going to shift the discourse one really good story at a time. And we're going to do that by telling Erica's story, by telling people this is what we've done. These are the things that we are accomplishing.
So by changing the discourse, we're going to change by offering employer and community-driven programs. Talk about our success stories, our Indigenous mentorship pre, during, and post. Our trades orientations, they're more defined career choices. We have currently one going on right now in one of the communities here. We're offering a 3 trades orientation, so they get a taste of a little bit of plumbing, a little bit of carpentry, and a little bit of electrical work. So from that, they'll be able to determine, you know, because we go into things thinking that we want, oh, I want to be an electrician. Well, once we get into there, we might find out, once we get into pre-apprenticeship program, we might find out that we really, it really wasn't for us. So then funding might become difficult, student loans and stuff like that. You already have to pay back the money, so you kind of ruined your chance, so to speak. So we're doing these orientations so they get an idea of what they want to do for sure, get a taste of it, and then after they're done, they're actually able to get a work placement, or they can choose to go to pre-apprenticeship programs, or they can go direct entry into work. So those are the things that we're working on right now. Working with all program service providers to share what programs and services are available to the community's apprentices, the Teen Apprenticeship Program, Skills Canada, the First in Trades, Black Bear, the colleges, and we don't want to over information people. We go to these things and let them decide what they want to bring. We offer the services, they decide who they want to come and share, learn more about.
Erica's done a great deal of training and workplace essential skills over the years. JEDI actually has a fantastic IRAM, Indigenous Reconciliation Awareness module, which we actually gave to union leadership, which is a key part of the First in Trades project, is bringing Erica and her community's knowledge and her nation's knowledge to non-Indigenous people. So, you know, even though we don't have a lot of work in industrial and commercial work in the New Brunswick Building Trades Union right now, we do have 2 really great success stories. We've placed 2 Indigenous people. We have Richard Giannini, who is, although very competitive, he got a very lucrative PLT employment position, a 4-year contract with New Brunswick Power Corporation. So he's well on his way to his power line technician Red Seal. And then we have Charles Paul. He's from Woodstock First Nation. Richard was from St. Mary's. Charles, before he started in an insulating, as an insulator apprentice, he didn't know what an industrial insulator actually did for work. So I called him up on a Thursday, told him we have an opportunity. I said, you know, you're not signing in blood, like come along, try it out, see if it's for you. And the night before his work started, Erica messaged me and said, did you see Charles's post on Facebook? And it said, I'm starting my new career tomorrow. And that was very impactful to Eric and I, because all of his family were congratulating him, and we really saw how that expands out. The pride and how that can spin off into other youth being interested. So then we're saying, okay, we've got 2 placed in the union, but with COVID-19, we don't have employment opportunities in the union. So Eric and I talked to the MBBTU and we said, you know, let's start thinking outside the box and outside the boundary, and let's think about developing a true skill to work where we're actually going to have employment contracts. So we have this new model, it's called STEP, Skilled Trades Exploration Program. So what we're going to propose is we're going to do a STEP I, which is STEP for Indigenous people. It's very similar to Erica's 3 trades orientation, but we have up front a partnership with an employer that has employment contracts ready to go for the participants in the skill to work. So it's like a direct entry into work. The first portion, of course, is a classroom, 6 weeks of classroom. We often have classroom in the morning and then shop in the afternoon. We do 2 weeks per trade. It depends on how many trades. That could change depending on the needs of the community. Erica, do you want to talk a little bit about what the training incorporates?
I'm going to talk a little bit. In the past, we did a longer step I, and it was for machining. So machining was, we did a 52-week, well, it turned out to be 62-week program. So what we actually did was we got the employer came to us looking for people for machining. They had a demand. They said, we need 60 people. So we said, what can we do? So we got together with the colleges and the employer and sat down and came up with a plan so that we'd have more hands-on than theory in the classroom. So what we actually did was bring in the participants. They did 12 weeks of theory-based to get routines and stuff like that. After the 12 weeks, we were going to offer them an opportunity to go into the machining shop and do some practical work. However, the students after 12 weeks didn't feel confident enough to be able to do that. So we actually extended them for another 12 weeks. So they did 24 weeks of theory. After their 24 weeks, they had the confidence, they were ready to go into the machining shop. They went in, they did 12 weeks of machining. And then after that 12 weeks, we brought them back to the classroom. What the employer did for us was they actually went through and they brought back how that individual did. Off the machines, they were able to find out how many they produced, what was produced, what they had troubles with, and all that stuff. So before they went back for their other 12 weeks of theory, they actually were told where their weaknesses are and the things that they can work on while they were in training to make it to be better. So once they were done that 12 weeks, they went back to the employer and they worked another 12 weeks. After that 12 weeks was done, the employer hired them if the student wanted the employment, they had the opportunity to stay and get the employment. And also the employer had the decision of whether they wanted to keep the students. So it had to be a mutual agreement. So we end up doing that class twice. And then the third time we offered it with a different training provider. So, and then COVID happened. So we are looking at redoing that, but that's kind of the way we're looking at doing it.
So the training portion is similar to many of the classroom portions. We'll go over the trades-based academics, the apprenticeship system in New Brunswick, workplace readiness, workplace essential skills, or WES, which taught by an Indigenous WES instructor. It's one of our requirements. Erica and JEDI have trained many people over the years to execute that training. We work on health and wellness and, of course, safety, all the safety training. Workplace readiness is pretty self-explanatory. We talk about work culture. The only thing we really want to highlight here, and this is something I've learned from Erica as an important part, which is the final, number 6, is 5 and 6, financial literacy and tax preparation. That's relevant here, and Erica, you may want to speak to this, but you know, if individuals are working off reserve, for the first time they have to do a tax return, and that can be scary. So part of getting folks ready to go out as apprentices into the workplace, Erica makes sure that she's really preparing them in every way possible for success.
So as she said, when they're leaving the community, they have to pay into their taxes, and a lot of people don't know how to do that, or if they're living in the communities and how to do that. So we actually offer them in the trades orientation. We actually offer all the clients a tax preparation course where we can, because all of us can use to learn about how to do our taxes ourselves, to understand when we do go file what we're doing and why we're doing it and how important it is. And we also offer financial literacy, because as you know, when you go to work, you get held back maybe a couple weeks. Some employers hold back a month. And when you're leaving your community and more, you got rents to pay and stuff like that. So we teach a lot of financial literacy, budgeting, and stuff like that.
So we know the STEP model is successful because my organization, MAP, and the New Boots program hosted a STEP in 2019 where JD Irving Limited, which has many different businesses underneath its umbrella and trades, and one of the larger employers in New Brunswick, partnered with New Boots and said, okay, let's do this step. They had 10 employment contracts ready for people to sign, and that's how the step began. It follows the same pattern of other probably skilled to work programs, only it starts with employment. 9 of the 9 women who accepted employment contracts and signed them continue to work in their jobs and are doing incredibly well in their apprenticeship. There was a great deal of media coverage, you see it here, and this is the kind of media coverage we're hoping to secure in our upcoming Step I, where we've partnered with a non-unionized employer actually that works closely with providing engineered housing packages. So Eric and I are working diligently right now to get a Step I off the ground. We think it's a step in the right direction because unlike, like we've said, it's all about employment first. So when we saw that table that Erica put up and said, okay, we have this many apprentices going in, why out of 57 are only 5 completing? It's because it's very difficult to find consistent employment to get the hours to get into your block in New Brunswick. So we're going to solve that with Step I and hopefully put people to work so they can get all the training they need.